We're still into our look at the General Assembly 2022. Today we have with us Delegate Nadarius Clark, who's going to talk to us about his view of the General Assembly itself as a young delegate. Also, in the second half hour, what's going on in the world? Russia, Ukraine. In addition to that, we have a Supreme Court nominee that's history making and will make history in March. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Claville. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments. Welcome back. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Sunday, February 27th, as we broadcast live on the campus of the Norfolk State University here in the great city of Norfolk on WNSB, the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA. In the studio with us, as we have every Sunday live, we have our producer, DJ Scandalous, Marvin Folks, always keeping us right and tight. In addition to that, we also like to thank all of you that have been supporting us, that are listening to us across our, either on the air or across our app. Continue to support us, because without you, we could not do what we do. And I have to give a shout out always to the Spartan Nation, the greatest alumni, the greatest supporters of their institution, bar none. And listen, we got a lot to be excited for. I mean, the Spartan Nation is continuing to show up and show out. Hats off to the men's and women's track team that captured the MEAC championship. Also, just last night, Norfolk State, they held off South Carolina State. So we're going into the MEAC conference number one. So can we repeat? Can we be the only school again in the Commonwealth of Virginia to win an NCAA tournament game? We hope there's many more. But we're rooting for the Spartan Nation itself. So again, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us here on Stay the Water. For those of you that have been joining us and listening to us for the month of January, February, and also coming into March, you know that every year we take a bird's eye view from the General Assembly. And here in the Commonwealth, our General Assembly is just not for us and our community, our state, but a lot of things that we do is a reflection upon what's going to happen moving forward in the country. That's right. This year we have midterm elections for houses of Congress and also some of our U.S. senators. And it's going to be a really, really interesting race, especially with things that are going on in the world. And we're going to talk in the second half hour about what's going on. Russia, Ukraine, and the historic nomination of the first black woman to the U.S. Supreme Court that happened over the weekend by President Joe Biden. But before we get to that in the second half hour, we'd like to welcome to Stay the Water a dynamic young man who's making a major difference already in the community. That's none other than Delegate Nadarius Clark. Delegate Clark, thank you for joining us. You're on Stay the Water.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, when we talk about, the future, I think you embody that now. As a matter of fact, what comes to mind, I was on a panel with Reverend William Barber, and I mentioned that we need to start preparing the future. He said, no, stop saying that. He said, we need to start preparing the now, because they are the now, not the future. And I think you represent just that statement that he made, being the now.
Yes, you got it right. And that was actually part of my campaign message when I first ran, was the time is now. Because before I decided to run, I kept thinking, I was like, you know what, I'm going to wait another 5-10 years before I run. And I said, well, you know what, we have to do it now. Now is the time to get involved. Now is the time to have youth at the table. And if I wait 10 years, I'm going to be 10 years older. So wanted to make sure that, it's the now. It's not the future. It's happening right now.
Absolutely. Now, for those of you that don't know who he is, because he is young, he is the now. but he's got the passion and the fight of some of the, what I call the old schools community activists out there. But Nadarius Clark, he's the delegate for the 79th district. He covers parts of Norfolk, Portsmouth, and also Chesapeake. Coming from a military family, background in entrepreneurship, he has a strong desire for the community. And I want you to talk a little bit about, your desire, why you decided to run, the race itself, because, we've talked about that before, but I think the story is absolutely phenomenal because who you're running against and how you actually ran your campaign and how that's a reflection of how you operate in the community now.
Yes, yeah, I love to share that story because my love, my why is I love social justice and I love to be out in the community, and activism is what got me started in this world of politics. Back when I was in undergrad at Virginia Union University, shout out to VUU, I started a social justice organization there with another one of my colleagues, and the reason why we really felt the need to have it is back in 2016 when the KKK came to Richmond and rallied and marched up and down Monument Avenue, I'm like, wait a minute, this is still happening. This is 2016. This was the now back then. And I said, something has to be done about this. And we're literally a couple blocks away trying to get higher education, and we have a whole, organized hate group marching up and down the street.
Right.
And from there, we went on and we learned how to lobby, we learned how to rally, we learned how to protest, and, complete the circle. After you go out and protest, all right, make sure you're lobbying for what you was protesting about to make sure that, the bills and the laws that you're trying to advocate change for, those voices don't fall on deaf ears. And then from there, I got involved in campaigning. And ever since campaigning, I just took off with that. I worked on a presidential race. I worked on the Biden campaign. I worked for my mayor over in Portsmouth, Shannon Glover. Worked on a delegates race. I did a couple nonprofit races. So I've been in the campaign side of things. And then I said, you know what? Let's see who my representative is. And let's take it a step further. Let's see how they vote. They make decisions on my behalf, on their constituents' behalf. I wasn't too happy with those results. And I said, it's time to take the next step. Whether win or lose, you run to win, but you have to be, realistic. And, my initial plan when I ran was to just make a statement that, you don't have to be, a certain status. You don't have to be of a certain wealth or a certain age or anything like that. You can be exactly who you are. You can be about your community, and your community will show up for you. And that's what happened. We went out there. We knocked 20,000 doors in the primary, another 20,000 doors in the general,
wow.
Made numerous calls, texts, we did email, anything you could think of, we were out there doing it. We was going to the schools, we was going to houses, the community events, civic engagement. We hit it hard and we hit the ground hard. And that's just what I like to enjoy. So many times when I was going to people's doors, a lot of people was like, who's my delegate? What's a delegate? And it was a lot of education that had to happen at the doors. But people were so thankful because they're like, I never had a candidate for delegate come and ask me about my issues and my concerns and actually meet me where I am to talk about the issues. And it was refreshing. And when that primary day came, they showed up, they showed out, and they got me over the finish line, and they did it again in the general.
Going and knocking doors, you said 20,000 doors. 20,000 doors. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of my days back as a community organizer when I was in college, of how I believe that one knock at a door can change the world. And many people are like, nah, you need more than that. But your story, what you're saying is that's the example of how you create change. One door, one knock at a time.
Yes, definitely. Now, grassroots is really how you build a campaign. You really have to be where your constituents are, where your neighbors are. And a lot of times, that's literally what happened. I was going in my own neighborhood. The neighborhood's beside me. I live in Portsmouth, born in Norfolk, but raised in Portsmouth. So a lot of people that I was canvassing was my neighbors. So it was good to have these conversations with people that you grew up with and you've been in the community with.
Absolutely. We're on the campus of one of the greatest historical Black college university and the largest in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But you also are a graduate of an HBCU, Virginia Union. Tell us how your education at HBCU really helped to prepare you for your walk that you're on now.
Yes, Virginia Union University really helped mold me into who I am now in so many different ways. Going to HBCU is a culture like no other, and you get to learn so many things about your own culture that you won't find at another college. I was also a drum major at Virginia Union,
That's
so
right.
I got to develop a lot of leadership, leading the band day in and day out. And then, starting that social justice organization, we had chapel, mandatory chapel every week, where we would go and hear different preachers and hear different speeches. And even sometimes we had the campus got a little political, and we would have preachers come in and different speakers come in and give us a little, politics one-on-one sometimes. And it was refreshing. And then just to know that, at Virginia Union, how historical it is and who walked these halls and these before me and how it came to be is remarkable to know. But not just only Virginia Union, but HBCUs all throughout Virginia has been a landmark for Black leaders and Black education in the Commonwealth. So, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for HBCU.
Absolutely. And, that's encouraging to hear, because a lot of times we hear the question, not so much more so now, but we used to hear the question all the time, are HBCUs relevant? And I shake my head and scratch my head and say, you have no idea, how important and how valuable our institutions are. And just that experience, that culture helps to put a little extra in you so that you can go into the General Assembly and voice issues, concerns, and issues for your neighbors next door that somebody that really didn't get immersed in that culture don't do.
Right.
So I want to hear from you about your experience as a young delegate and how have you found it to be voicing and standing up for issues that that the majority of the General Assembly probably are ignoring, know about, don't care, or wanted to go away?
Yes, no, thank you for that question. I'm gonna piggyback to the other question real quick because I got to defend my HBCUs. When people ask me that question about are they relevant, they should really look at the statistics and see that HBCUs is the number one producer for teachers, for Black teachers, for Black lawyers, judges. A lot of Black leaders come out of HBCUs. They are the top producers for a lot of fields. So when people say, are we relevant, do your homework and make sure
That's
you
right.
know the statistics.
Do your homework. Look, as a matter of fact, real quick, you mentioned education. There are 2 bills now in the General Assembly just that are targeting more Black teachers, because they're bills that are targeting HBCUs to increase the amount of scholarships to give the teachers. So that shows the value right there that the General Assembly knows and sees in Virginia, the value of our HBCUs. But you're exactly right.
Yes, definitely. And then I got off guard there. But to jump to your other question about how the session is going and everything, and how's the bills going, I found 11 bills this year, 2 budget amendments. One of my bills made it through the House. It's over in the Senate now. I'm enjoying the process, getting my bills through, working them through.
Right.
And is there some good bills coming through? Is there some bad bills coming through? Well, depending on what's your view of good and bad, I guess.
Right. Well,
but, I like to be transparent a lot when we talk about what's going on in the General Assembly, because a lot of times people don't understand the ramifications of elections have consequences. And sadly, we're dealing with some of the consequences of the last election when you see the things about CRT and the things about discriminating in religious institutes. So make that a real thing again. So it's a lot still going on. A lot is being killed. A lot of that foolishness is being killed. It's just that someone had the audacity to draft up a bill that promotes discrimination of other people it just tells you the mindset of some of the members.
Speaking of, bad bills, right? And you and I both laughed at it because we know what all those bills were. But, they were targeting voting, access to voting, which is the last 4 years. The General Assembly, which was controlled by the Democrats at the time, really fought hard to protect. But this session, it was just reported not too long ago. I want to say maybe about 37 minutes ago, where early this morning I got the notice that the governor administration rescinded the equity resources, claiming divisive concepts are widespread in Virginia schools. We're going to talk more about this in the second half hour, but I want to get your take on, your view of what the definition of divisive concepts and how it's being utilized in this administration.
Yes, that language concerns me as well. Being, I'm only 9 years out of high school, and I don't remember too much divisive language being taught in the first place. I do recall a lot of history that's already not in the textbooks, so it troubles me when I hear that, they're going to start banning certain books, and they created a hotline for certain teachers, when students are called on teachers and things of that sort. And it's very troublesome because, as we know, there's so much history that's already not taught, and now it seems like we're attacking it again. And you have to pay close attention to what we allow or don't allow the next generation to know. And it's very concerning because, when I learned about Black Wall Street or Seneca Village or the 26 other cities that suffered the same fate as Black Wall Street between 1918 and 1922, so many things go untaught, so many, untold heroes and untold truths that, I didn't learn in public schools. And now that, there's an attack saying that there's divisive concepts, the divisive concept, in my point of view, was the truth not being told from the jump. So that's the battle that I have been trying to fight, to make sure that we tell the truth, no matter if it makes us uncomfortable. The truth is the truth. You can't hide that. And whether we like it or not, or whether how we internalize it, it's hard. Everybody's different. We're all going to internalize things different ways, but it's our duty and our responsibility to tell the truth.
Absolutely. This is WNSB, Hot 91, the soul of VA. I'm your host, Dr. Claville. This is State of the Water. We have with us our guest, Delegate Nadarius Clark, who's a freshman delegate in the General Assembly, who is representing the 79th District, which represents parts of Norfolk, Portsmouth, and also Chesapeake. We're talking now with the delegate about why he decided to run and his take on how it is that he's found the boldness to speak up on the floor and in committees about bad bills that are coming through the General Assembly to protect the interests of his constituents. Delegate Clark, in continuing with bills that are out there, you stated as a freshman, you filed over 11 bills in the General Assembly. That's really unheard of. First of all, as I ask all the new delegates, the big question is, have you been able to find the bathrooms, your office, and the committee rooms throughout the day? But you've hit the floor running. Tell us about some of the bills, and more specifically, the bill that's made it through the full committee that you would like us to know about.
Yes, definitely. My bill HB 573 is my medical debt bill. It is for a statute of limitations to limit it from 5 to 3 years for all medical debt once it goes over to collection. So it will allow collection agencies to only have a 3-year window instead of a 5-year window to collect those funds. But it also just not for collection agencies. Actually, it will put the first statute of limitation on the Commonwealth itself.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about some of the other bills that you didn't necessarily author, but some that you're supporting that you feel are necessary to pass through this General Assembly.
Yes, it's a lot of good bills. Delegate McQuinn has a great bill that will help Black and brown people in Virginia. It's a study group right now, but it's around implicit bias training in the medical field. I had a similar bill that was laid on the table. But as we know, in the medical profession, there's a lot of implicit bias sometimes, whether we want to admit it or not. But when I have friends that calls me and say, hey, my mother popped their shoulder out of place, we went to the hospital and they gave them Advil. Like, you know, these are real things that happens in our communities. And, you know, sometimes implicit bias isn't saying someone is racist. It's just saying a bias is something that you're doing without second thought. It's like you're just doing it because it's second nature. So we need to train you to just make sure that you understand all aspects and all races when people come to get life-saving treatment. Even when it comes to black and brown mothers having children, they're still dying at a higher rate. Even and when you look at that part, when I did the study, when I looked at the statistics, black women are 3 times higher to die during childbirth.
Wow.
And I found it even more concerning. Educated black women were 5 times more likely to die from childbirth, which is very startling and very concerning. And then when you look at infant mortality in the black and brown community, it's higher than anyone else. These things must be looked at and identified and see what's going on, and we must take strides to try to stem this situation. But sadly, my bill was laid on the table. Delegate McQuinn's bill did make it out of the House, so it's working its way through the Senate. So please keep an eye out on that as well. I do want to bring some attention to my teacher pay bill. We know, as well, we did get through the budget. You know, budget day just passed not too long ago, but we still have to go to conference and all of that. But teachers will be getting a raise this year. It's not the raise I would like, but it is a raise. I had a bill that will give teachers, that will demand that teachers come to the national average or above in the next 6 years. And it had a lot of flexibility in there between the state and between local government. But sadly, what the other side campaigned on, they didn't fulfill that promise. But we will be having a teacher pay increase in the next 2 years. I would like it to be over the next 6 years, because sadly, the raise that's going to come to fruition won't get us there. We will still be under, less than the top 50 percentile for teacher pay, but yet we're in the top 10 for our kids' test scores. Absolutely.
You know, it's very important. You know, when you talked about various bills and how they move through, you know, in the legislature, those that have been in government and government relations for a while, we call it sausage making. You know, everybody loves sausage. I mean, I don't eat it myself, but everybody loves sausage, right? You know, it's very tasty, but you don't want to see how it's made. What's some of the things that you've experienced behind the scenes that have been more so an eye-opening or more of a challenge that you really didn't expect?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for that question. I love to learn, so I really didn't set myself with too high of an expectation coming into the minority and as a black 26-year-old male.
Right.
So I didn't give myself too much of a high expectation, but it's been very it's a blessing to be in the General Assembly at my age and to be able to do what I'm doing. So I just enjoy the learning process. You know, going to subcommittee, really having those debates, and having your people to there to advocate for it, the people that's going to speak against it, then getting it through the full committee, then getting it on the floor. You got your 3 readings on the floor. Then you think you made it, and then crossover comes, and you got to do it all again in the Senate. If you got some amendments, you got to come back to the floor and amend them on the floor, take them back to the Senate. It's a process. It's definitely a process. And then just get it to the governor's desk, and then you still got to get the governor to sign it. And then reconvene comes in April, and you got to make some more decisions. So it's a journey. It's a journey of a bill to become law. And it's I enjoy the process, and I find it that it's refreshing to see that even though we have our differences, it is some good stuff coming out of the General Assembly this year. like we said, it was some bad bills, but we did get some good bills to make sure that we can help the Commonwealth and all of our constituents. But it's been a journey, and I'm just, like I said, I'm just blessed to be here to experience it.
Absolutely. We're coming into our last few minutes, but I want you to talk a little bit more about your vision. Again, like you said, this was a bold step for you. In the words of Reverend Barbara, you are the now, not the future. So, you've hit the ground running. When we've been in the General Assembly in the hallways, going door to door, I've always seen you, and we've spoken and so forth. And you're on the go. I want the listeners to know you're not sitting in the office. You're out. You're walking. You're making sure that you're meeting and greeting and engaged. But tell us more about your vision after this session moving forward that you're working on, and you're saying, hey, back to the drawing board. We see what worked. Now we want to increase it so that we can be ready in our community and when we go back to Capitol Hill in next year.
Yes. And thank you for that question as well. Yes. I would say the vision after session ends is just to really hunker down on constituent services and just make sure, one, everyone understands what just happened during session. I will be having a town hall the last week of session just to give a recap of everything that went through, a recap of our bills, the budget, and different things like that. I had my first town hall the first week of session, so I'm going to have my next one the last week of session just to, to bring it back full circle. But I do plan to, be in the community again, just like we were during campaign season. I'm already planning to have some seminars with some of the teachers at Norcom, because Norcom actually just came up to the Capitol this week. We had Norcom Day.
That's right.
And I got to speak to the young people from Norcom. Union came up last week. VCU came. So I really want to be engaged with the youth. And my campaign was 95% youth-led. Most of my campaign was people that was my age and younger. My campaign manager is younger than me. My field director was younger than me. I believe in, in giving the youth opportunities. Even right now, I have 4 interns, 2 from Virginia Union, 2 from VCU. I believe in, providing opportunities for the youth. So I would definitely be still doing that in the future. Bringing opportunities to the 79th district so people can learn. A lot of times people push away from politics because we just don't understand all of the nuances of it. And it's so much as you can do from the campaign side to the legislative side. It's so many different aspects that, people wouldn't know that they're actually talented and good at it. Because honestly, working in politics for as long as I have, those jobs aren't really as visible as other jobs. So I want to bring transparency and visibility to these opportunities.
I love that you are creating that which you have become by giving those internship opportunities. One of the major drivers, plans, and key points of our president, President Adams Gasson, also affectionately called Dr. J, she believes that every student should leave the university with one paid internship so that they'll know exactly what the quote-unquote real world is about. But more importantly, do what you love, and so you can make an impact in this world. Thank you for doing that. Continue doing that because that's beautiful. And we can all look back.
I got a shout out. I did have an intern from during my general and my primary. I had a Norfolk State intern. So thank you, Norfolk State.
Absolutely. And look, let's continue to have Norfolk State interns. So for all those young spars that are listening, Delegate Clark, he's engaged, and if you want to work with him, work with someone who at a young age, 26, 27 years old, that's engaged in the now, then this is someone that you want to tag into. Tell us how we can, in our last few moments, tell us how we can get in touch with you, we can sign up for your newsletter, and if there's anything else, be a part of the town hall.
Yes, definitely. Everything you need is at clarkfordelegate.com. You can go up there and you can go to constituent services, or even on the front page, on the main page, is a link up there to sign up for town halls. There's a link up there if you need to email us to get in contact if you have any issues or concerns or any things you want to work out. You can also go up there and you can follow the bills. We have a link up there so you can see how each one of our bills are making it through committees and everything. Our website is very user-friendly, very transparent. We even have a interactive map up there, up the 79th district. If you need to make sure that to see if you're in the 79th, you can literally go on that interactive map and see if you fall in between the line. So please go to clarkfordelegate.com.
That's clarkfordelegate.com. This is Delegate Nadarius Clark. Thank you for joining us here on State of the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
The new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA, celebrates Black History Month.
Nia DaCosta is the first Black woman to direct a Marvel movie. DaCosta was tapped to direct the Captain Marvel sequel. It's remarkable. DaCosta had only released one movie in theaters when Marvel gave her the keys to its billion-dollar franchise. Look for The Marvels, which is the official title of the sequel, to hit theaters in July of this year. Nia DaCosta says she is a huge Marvel fan and that she always wanted to direct a Marvel movie.
Celebrating Black History Month. It's the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA.
It's a birthday Mardi Gras celebration at Brickster 600. Come celebrate DJ Heart Attack's birthday and Mardi Gras celebration on Tuesday, March 1st from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. There will be live entertainment, Creole food, king cakes, and more. And for lucky listeners, will have a chance to win and celebrate with DJ Heart Attack at his VIP table. It's a birthday Mardi Gras celebration with DJ Heart Attack at Brickster 600, Tuesday, March 1st.
Welcome back. It's Save the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank you for joining us for the second half hour of our View from the General Assembly State of the Water show here on Sunday, February 27, as we broadcast live from the campus of the Norfolk State University, broadcasting from WNSB, the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA. We have our producer here, DJ Scandalous, Marvin Folks, which you can hear here live on WNSB, the Soul of VA, every Monday through Friday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. In our first half hour, we had with us Delegate Nadarius Clark that represents the 79th District here in the Commonwealth of Virginia and parts of Norfolk, also Portsmouth and Chesapeake. And he's the youngest delegate right now, Marvin, serving in the General Assembly right now. And he hit the floor running. So you heard the passion in his voice, coming right out of college, working in college as interns and on campaigns, knocking on doors. Right. Graduated from Virginia Union, another HBCU, great HBCU here in the Commonwealth. You know, it's not Norfolk State, but again, another great HBCU here in the Commonwealth. Hats off to all my Virginia Union brothers and sisters. We love you. But hitting the ground running, showing that the youth is not the future. You're the now. You know, knocking on 20,000 doors. Think about that. 20,000 doors. Think about all the walking that takes place. So it's good to be young to be able to do that. So we're thankful to have him there in the General Assembly. And as you said, you can get in contact with him. Sign up for his newsletter at clarkfordelegate.com if you're looking for an internship or want to work with someone that's young and engaged. Go ahead and reach out to him. So he's having town halls in his district. He's out there, he's engaged, so make sure that you stay engaged with him. In the second half hour, we want to take a look at some of the things that are going on in the headlines. You know, not just domestically, but around the world. You know, some people are saying, what in the world is going on? You know, Russia and Ukraine, you know, it's first of all, had our prayers go out to the people of Ukraine, the fellow Ukrainians that are also here in America that are showing support with the unprovoked invasion of Russia under the direction of the President Vladimir Putin. You know, Marvin, sometimes I just shake my head, you know, because you see these things happening in real time and, you know, because of social media, you know, you can see it happen real time. You know, the president of Ukraine, he's out there saying that they're not giving up. You know, they've come into the capital city. They're fighting. But the Russian forces have been held up because of the support of the NATO countries and their military equipment. So let's just hope that it stops there. You know, let's just hope that these peace talks work. But we do know that they've breached Chernobyl. For those of you that are too young to remember, Chernobyl was the worst nuclear disaster that we've had in our world in our time. So hopefully, you know, there's been reports that there's increased radiation coming out of the dome that was cracked to seal in that radiation. So we'll see. I mean, it's so fast moving, and it's hard to believe we're coming out of COVID. We're back. We're open. We're moving forward. And when we open, the world, we're open. It seems like we're opening to war, but we don't want to go there. We don't want to go there. So again, our prayers go out to the people of Ukraine and those that have lost loved ones, to the Ukrainian Americans that are here. Our support goes out to you. And across the city of Norfolk, support is coming. Across the Commonwealth, support is coming for them. As a matter of fact, there's even the ABC store removed 7 Russian-sourced vodkas from the shelves. And then, of course, the governor called for decisive action in support of Ukraine, and the city of Norfolk looking to remove from doing business with certain Russian businesses. So the support is there. Economic sanctions have been levied against Russia on their banks. Many are calling for more, 80% of their banks, but many are calling for 100% sanctions upon their banks and harsher. And let's just hope and pray that that's enough. The supply chains are being cut off. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But let's ensure that we're continuing to be engaged, continuing to stay abreast of what's happening. And as Americans, we just came out of a 20-year war in Afghanistan, there. So I know that some people are saying that we're a little fatigued, war fatigue, and we have forces that are there at various bases and so forth. But we know that we have the greatest military in the country. We know that we've got the bravest men and women serving our military, all volunteer military, by the way, all volunteer. And, we are a major force, if not the major force in the world from a military standpoint. Of course, here in Hampton Roads, our economy, the very fabric of who we are is part military. I mean, we've got all 5 branches located here across the 7 cities, and that's a phenomenal thing to have. And, of course, the largest naval base in the world right here in the city of Norfolk, right across from the university. We have also have one of the largest shipbuilding units here on the peninsula at Newport News Shipbuilding. And then all the other supports, that the Air Force Base at Langley and Hampton, the Fort Eustis Base, Army Base in Newport News, and also the Coast Guard and Marine Base in Yorktown and here in Virginia Beach. So we have the support. We've got the support here, and we're going to continue to do so. Continue to support, because at the end of the day, we're just not citizens of the city of Norfolk, citizens of Hampton Roads or the 757, citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia, but we're world citizens. So what happens over in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Sweden, Finland, Moscow, whatever happens there also affects us here. So again, this show is about, bringing issues that are important to the community and that affect the community, Marvin. So as world citizens, we've got to be engaged. We've got to be cognizant of what's going on. We can't acquiesce, to things that are happening. Say, oh, that's them. It doesn't affect me. It affects all of us. That's right. I like that, Marvin. In the know and now. We got to be in the know and now. So again, we're going to continue to be in support, of our Ukrainian brothers and sisters, because war is useless. People dying for no reason. These are innocent people that are dying, civilians. And we can think about the trauma that the children are going through, of this shelling that's taking place, bombs dropping over there constantly. That's trauma. As a matter of fact, there was a story that came out where mothers were giving birth to their children in underground bunkers. Yeah. So, life doesn't stop just because somebody decides to invade you. You got to continue to live. And the birthing process is one of those processes that's not going to stop. So, we got to continue to pray for them, continue to ensure that we lift them up, and again, be engaged in solidarity, support for them. But I want to pivot a little to something else that's in the news that's historic. And that is, on this weekend, President Joe Biden made an historic nomination. In the over 400 years we've been here, and over 200 plus years that our country has existed, never has there been a nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, of a black African-American woman. There's never been. Never been. I mean, think about that. Many people believe, and I believe it, the black woman is really the backbone of our country. From taking care of multiple homes during the time of slavery, and taking care of multiple children. And not just that, but also playing a major part in major movements. The right to vote, civil rights, slavery, ensuring the freedom of individuals from the bondage of slavery, education, and the like. Black women have been at the forefront of all these movements, in the background of all these movements, and being the backbone of our country. They have been. History shows it. The facts dictate it. And we just have to come to a point where we now start to recognize and celebrate those achievements, and also not just the achievements, but the work of great women of our time and in the past. So with that, President Biden announced the nomination of Ketanji Brown Jackson to be chosen to replace retiring Justice Stephen Breyer on the U.S. Supreme Court, where he's fulfilling one of his campaign promises that he would appoint a black woman, that he would nominate a black woman to be appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. So, according to Yahoo News, the White House in their statement said that Judge Jackson is an exceptionally qualified nominee as well as an historic nominee. And the Senate should move forward with a fair and timely hearing and confirmation. So, the last 2 days of Black History Month, this nomination comes out, and I think it's very fitting that we end Black History Month with this historic nomination and go into Women's History Month for the nomination for the actual process in order to appoint her to the Supreme Court. So let's take a look at this. There are 5 things that Yahoo News points out about this particular historic pick. So, number 1, she clerked for Justice Breyer. Secondly, she was confirmed to her current position with some bipartisan support. She said race doesn't play a role in her work, but life experiences do. But, I say race does play a role in everything. I know what she's saying, but it plays a role in all of our lives. She was a public defender, and let me tell you something, as a lawyer myself, public defenders don't make that much money. And to do that, you got to love to do it. And she was part of the counsel. She was a judge when she ordered Trump's former counsel to testify in his impeachment inquiry. But let me go to a couple of these and kind of delve into it. So keep in mind that the U.S. Supreme Court is a very exclusive group, a very exclusive. It used to be just an exclusive fraternity, until the first nominee, the first woman to serve on the court, which was not nominated at that time by President Reagan. And then, of course, we had Justice Ginsburg, who just recently passed away. We have now Justice Sotomayor and Justice Kagan, who's currently serving on the U.S. Supreme Court. So we have a chance now to have the 5th woman and 2 women of color, one of Hispanic Puerto Rican descent and another of African American descent, to be serving on the court at the same time. Think about the optics of that. Now, this is 2022. All right. We're 1776, American Revolution, right? 1781 Constitution. And then Supreme Court established as well as part of that. So let's just say since 1781, we've got to 2022, there's never been a black woman on the bench of the Supreme Court. This is extremely, extremely historic. I mean, think about it. Look at the optics of that. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. So I know that we've got a long way to go, but we're making tremendous strides in how we are in our road to get there. So let's take a look at her. Justice Jackson, because she currently serves on the D.C. Circuit, when she was confirmed. But Justice Jackson is a graduate of Harvard Law School. She served as law clerk to 3 federal judges, including Justice Breyer. And also as Breyer's clerk during the 1999 to 2000 term, she learned up close how important it is for the Supreme Court to build consensus and to speak the mainstream understanding of the Constitution, according to the White House. And the 83-year-old Breyer considers Jackson a member of his extended family. Now, I can tell you as one of the greatest experiences that you can have as a young attorney is to be a clerk, a law clerk. Because as a law clerk, you're working behind the scenes and learning exactly what goes through the process. Now, when I was an undergrad, I worked as a judicial assistant because when my undergrad institution, you couldn't graduate unless you actually had public service or internship, right? So that was part of our curriculum. And I chose to work in the court. And the judge that I work for is still there. And just working behind the scenes, seeing how it goes together, the dockets, voir dire, how jurors are chosen, what goes through the process as the judge talks to the clerk and the clerk does the work in order to bring the wishes of the judge to fruition and the writing of opinions and so forth. It was an amazing experience learning how that process takes place. And as a clerk, you not only get the experience of the judiciary up front, but you also build relationships across the board. So the fact that Justice Breyer said that she's a part of his extended family, I mean, that means a lot. That says a lot. And not only that, but justices and judges choose their clerks. So it's not like you're just coming there applying for a job and, you go through a civil service process. No, you go through an interview and you got to line up with them. It's got to be a good collegial working environment. And that's what ended up happening. For him to say that, I can only imagine that. So we see someone who's also a Harvard graduate. Now, of course, some say that there is a Supreme Court bias where now the last justice who's retiring is not, who was not a graduate of Harvard or Yale Law School. He's leaving the court, and now the entire court will be filled with graduates that only graduated from 2 law schools. That's Yale or Harvard. And, some say there's bias there, right? Because there was another nominee who, Congressman Claville, was actually championing. That graduated from South Carolina's University of South Carolina, and went to state schools and went to public schools. So, some may have, something to say about that, but it is what it is. So she graduated from Harvard Law School and she clerked for 3 federal justices. But also, before being nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court, she was also confirmed to her current post with bipartisan support. Now, what does that mean? Biden nominated Jackson to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, which many, by the way, being on that particular appeals court, you handle all of the decisions that come down. You hand down all of the decisions of actions by the U.S. government, right? So things that are happening on the federal level, you're hearing those, you're dealing with those. And that's crucial. And many people see being appointed to the D.C. Appeals Court is actually a stepping stone to the U.S. Supreme Court. Current Attorney General Merrick Garland actually served on the D.C. Circuit, and he had been there for years. So, again, that was the nominee picked by former President Barack Obama, which the Republicans didn't even take an interview with Merrick Garland when he was actually nominated. So this is going to be a test for the other side to see exactly what they do when they actually were in power, to see how they handle this situation. But she was confirmed by a Senate vote of 53-44, with several Republicans voting for her. Senators Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, all voting in her favor. As a matter of fact, Graham in a tweet said that Jackson means the radical left has won President Biden's over yet again. But at the same time, he praised on her, on U.S. District Judge Michelle Childs, who was speculated to be one of Biden's leading contenders on the Supreme Court. Now, of course, Michelle Childs is from his home state of South Carolina. So, for the most part, we can understand why he would heap praise upon her. But when we take a look at the confirmation, keep in mind that because of the nuclear option that was instituted by Senator Mitch McConnell, which I did a show last year called Justice McConnell. And I talked about Senator McConnell's eye on the judiciary. Go back and take a look at that show. Go to our YouTube channel, put in Stay in the Water at WNSB, and put in Justice McConnell. And I talked about how he viewed the judiciary as the wall, the stop to all other issues that if they lose the House, the Republicans lose the House of Congress, if they lose the Senate, then the judiciary would be that final stop on major issues in our country, such as voting rights, such as criminal justice reform, such as health care reform, such as issues of equity. You know, some call it affirmative action, but issues of equity and equality. So the court would be that final backstop to those, to keep the policies and the law going in a trajectory of conservatism. Now, whether it be extreme or moderate. So he removed the 2/3 vote from the Senate, something that we've been doing in the U.S. Senate for over 200 plus years. That was a rule that was there. He said, we don't need it anymore, in order to confirm the several justices that were confirmed during the time of President Trump. Now, keep in mind, that was a major move. That was a major political move, but it came with some repercussions. And with that, when you're not in power, guess what happens? The other side can utilize that rule. And that's what's happening. So instead of a 2/3 vote to approve a judicial nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court, which basically in the wisdom of the founding fathers in drafting the wording that way in the Constitution, it means that no side can have complete control. You got to come together and compromise. Not for extreme candidates, but moderate candidates to the Supreme Court. But now you only need a simple majority in order to get the nomination across the board. So we don't foresee Justice Brown not being confirmed for the most part because of the nuclear option, unless there's something unforeseen that happens, right? Which we in Washington and policy we know that could be anything, any day. But it looks like that she will be confirmed. But giving more about her work life, she was born in D.C. She moved to Florida as a child, who were with parents who both were graduates of HBCUs. Went to public school. She was confirmed to the U.S. Court of Appeals by John Cornyn, a Republican out of Texas. And not only that, well, during that time, he was actually there when she was confirmed to the court. And he asked her about race, how it would affect her job. So she wasn't confirmed by Republican Cornyn, but when she was confirmed to the U.S. Court of Appeals, Senator John Cornyn, who's a Republican out of Texas, asked her, how does race affect her job? This was her answer. She said, I don't think race plays a role in the kind of judge that I would have been, that I have been or would be. She said, I'm doing certain things when I get to my cases, looking at arguments, facts of law, methodically, intentionally, setting aside personal views and other appropriate considerations. And evaluating the case, the kind of evaluation, she thinks that race would be the kind of thing that would be inappropriate to inject into her evaluation of cases itself. Now, she did state, she made it clear that she's experienced life in perhaps a different way than some of her colleagues because of who she is, a black woman. That would be valuable. And she hoped that would be valuable if confirmed to the court. Now, when I mentioned earlier, when she said that race doesn't play a part, yes, that's the part that I wanted to make sure we made clear. When you're judging a case, you judge based on the law and arguments. Now, everybody's experience plays a part, but you have to give an explanation in the law, in the facts, in the evidence, as opposed to what you think. So that's the beauty of the appellate process. That's the beauty of the courts. That's the beauty of the checks and balances. What does the law say? What's your argument to the law? And once you give that, now you can make your decision. That's why you can always make an appeal, because it's in the law. You can give a legal argument to the fact. But the statement that she made, she said, I want to be clear, though. She said she's had a different experience in life than her other colleagues, simply because of who she is. And that's important for all of us to recognize, is that in this time period, our race, our gender, who we are, plays a part in our experience in our lives. But that doesn't mean that individuals take that disappointment, they take that, the hatred that they receive, they take that and harp it up on others. As a matter of fact, I've said it a lot on this show. Keep saying it. I believe African Americans are some of the most forgiving and understanding individuals in this world. Because of all the hell that we've caught, we don't give it back in that way. We're in positions of power. Even from the end of the Civil War, when black legislators were in state houses and in Congress, they passed laws that helped everybody. There was no public school, even for whites. But they passed laws across the various states to provide public funding for education for all individuals. The church was educating most, and if you were wealthy, you had tutors that came in and educated your children. But they passed laws to help everybody. Who does that? Who does that after over 240 some odd years of involuntary servitude called slavery, right? Right? Who does that? African-American legislators did that and are still doing that. If we listen to the delegates and the senators that are coming onto this show, the congressmen, you hear the policies they're saying. This is for all citizens. This is going to help the community as a whole. Because for the most part, we believe that if you help, of course, where the greatest need is first, but if you help everybody, then that will also help everybody. As a matter of fact, if we help those that can't eat or can't get jobs, then that takes a burden off those that have funds, and it takes burden off the tax base. It takes burden off us towing the bill for these things that others can help provide for themselves. It helps us all. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So this particular justice, we'll see if the senators that supported her before will continue to support her. I believe that they have all 50 Democratic votes. Now we just simply need one more. And hey, if it's 50-50 down the board, if the Republicans that confirmed her for the U.S. Appeals Court, the D.C. Circuit, then we have a tiebreaker from the vice president herself. And how fitting would it be that the first black woman vice president of the United States breaks the Senate tie to appoint the first black woman to the U.S. Supreme Court for this country? Is it poetic? We'll see. Well, stranger things have happened, but maybe I just set us up for another historic moment in our history. Well, you hear the music, and you know what that means. That means that we're out of time. But you can join us every Sunday at 1 p.m. here on WNSB, the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA, with our producer, DJ Scandalous, also known as Marvin Folks, who's here with us ensuring that we get the message over to you. Thank you for your work that you do. But it's Stay the Water, where we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. Join us again on next Sunday here on the campus of Norfolk State University. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. Have a wonderful day. God bless. See you next time.